So the allotments are where they are now, but they're much reduced in size. What's going to happen to those people who are going to be displaced from that?
That's something we don't know I don't know off the top of my head, but we have reviewed. I think not everyone who has an allotment existing actually lives on the estate. There are a few allotment holders who are from off the estate as well. Is my understanding.
But the carving up of the public realm and amenity space has been done in conjunction with everybody as part of the survey.
So the allotment space is slightly reduced, but the actual overall green amenity space is larger than what they've had. I'm not sure what you mean by carving up of the public realm. Maybe elaborate.
Well, it's about a third of what it was, the allotment space, according to the figures. It goes from 245 down to 85 square meters. There are a loss of 160 square meters of allotment space.
And in the space of where the allotments are is more green. Is more green space. So it's not exactly it's not the allotments per se, but it's still green amenity, which will be shared by more people and used by more people within the estate.
But that's been done in conjunction with the residents, has it?
All the plans
allocation.
So I don't know exactly who's been allocated an allotment at the end. It's just, but the actual garden design itself has been done in conjunction with the residents. So we've sort of gone through what their needs and aspirations are. There's also the retention of some of the existing elements in the garden that they already treasure as well.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah. So in spaces where there are allotments, it's still green amenity, if you see what I mean.
Understood. Thank you very much indeed. Can I move on to Councillor Whitehead, followed by Councillor Livingstone? Councillor Whitehead.
Thank you, Chair. I just kind of wanted to go back to the resident consultation and the scope of that. So while I definitely agree that it's great that you've undertaken such an extensive consultation with the existing residents, I just wanted to understand the kind of the link between their views on what they need in terms of amenity. So whether that's how many beds they need in their flat, etc. And why that is directly relevant to, I guess, assessing the needs of potential future occupants of the new building. Because as I understand it, with only a few exceptions, the people who will be moving into the estate and not the people who already live there, they won't be moving into the new flats. There will be new residents. So I'm just wondering why there was such a clear correlation drawn between what existing residents need who in small flats, so therefore of course they probably don't need bigger flats, and therefore drawing from that future residents will also need the same thing.
Thank you.
I'm happy to take that, Chair.
Hopefully my question makes.
Yeah.
So to try and explain the kind of community-led approach more and the steps that involved. So the first step was to form a community board. So that was delegated by the residents. So we had a community project board that was formed. They then developed a brief to appoint a development manager. So that's Igloo. And I should have said that we've got Chris, James and Mark on the call from Igloo today if you have any more detailed questions about their approach. We've also got Alan, who's our planning consultant. We then took a lot of time at the start of the appointment to kind of develop a brief with the residents. So the residents said to us exactly what they would expect to see in this new development proposal in terms of kind of the landscape mix, kind of the bedroom mix, where would they prefer to have the building sited. So the residents really kind of as it was community led, they kind of steered the whole process. And we then as a design team had to respond to that. So it's really kind of listening to their views. Obviously, the project involves the demolition of 8 existing shallow units, so that we wanted to make sure that we went the extra mile to ensure that any residents moving within the scheme had a say on how it's designed. What was missed at the start was, as part of the land swap agreement, TfL are actually giving us 4 right to buy flats in the tower. So that means that 4 residents from the chalets can actually move into the tower in the first phase. And if they want to, once the new building's built, they can then move into the new building afterwards. So there's going to be quite a lot of kind of moving around, and as part of the kind of consultation, the residents have already done a lot of work as to who's going to be living where. And obviously, once the new building's built and that's fully occupied, there will be then vacant flats in the existing tower for new residents to move back into. It's also worth pointing out that the estate is quite quirky for Southwark because it's all one bed. So it's 56 one bedroom units. So you've got quite an unusual existing community of one bed properties, which means you've already got a very small size of households. So that has a bearing on the kind of character of the estate and the way the residents want to keep that estate going in the future.
Councillor Whitehead, are you?
Yeah, thanks. So just to press on this a little more. So if I guess it depends on what questions you're asking residents. So were you asking residents on the estate, do you think that the future flats that we're building here, which you won't be moving into, but the future flats that will be built in a separate block should be 1 bed or 2 bed? Or, as at least I'd understood it from the report, were you asking them, what are your housing needs? Which I think is quite a separate question, to which they responded, presumably in line with whatever bedrooms they have in their current apartment. So I'm just trying to clarify, were they being asked what they expect the future estate to look like in terms of occupancy and the size of the flats that are being built, which they won't be living in? Or were they being asked what are their current needs, which will remain satisfied by where they live in most cases, I would assume?
So the housing needs assessment was the piece of work that was carried out by the TMO to establish the brief, and that basically looked at what their needs are now and in future. So it looked at both, and that then gave the data that Vendela gave in her presentation.
All righty. That's the best answer you're going to receive, Councillor Whitehead, at this stage. You might want to speak to, if there is a supporter, the supporters later on. I thought I had Councillor Livingstone next, but your digital hand has gone down.
Chair, yes, no, and that's deliberate because I was going to ask about the bedroom mix, but I think Dan's response on that has covered the point that I wanted to raise, Chair.
Most grateful. Thank you very much. I see a digital hand for Councillor Whittam. Is that Archive, old one?
No, I was just wondering if Zoe, who we know is a resident of the estate, is she speaking as a supporter later, or can we hear from her now?
She will be speaking as a supporter, Kath. Yes, she will.
Okay.
Oh, okay. I got on to the other heading. That's okay. That's fine. That's fine. In that case, are there further questions to the applicants? If not, I would thank you both for your presentation and responses to members' questions tonight. Thank you very much. I'll now move on to the supporters. This is anyone who lives within 100 meters of the development site who wish to speak. Now, this meeting is being live streamed and the recording will be available on the Council's YouTube channel. So you may choose to switch off your camera and address the meeting with audio only. When introducing yourself, please only give your first name, block or street you live in, not the exact address. Now, officially, I don't have a registered speaker, but you just said that Zoe is a resident. So, is that right?
Yes, I'm a resident, yeah, and I was speaking today.
Right, okay. In that case, Zoe, so what I'm going to do in that case, if I may, I'm just going to put you under the correct heading. Now then, there we go. Now, I'll just explain how we'll do this. So I'll give you 3 minutes to make your presentation. Ideally, I would recommend that your presentation really leads on issues which you wish members to ask questions on. At the 30-second marker, I will indicate you have 30 seconds, at which time you need to complete. Is that okay? So Can I ask you, first of all, just to introduce yourself, and as I said, you don't need to give your exact address, but just give approximate location where you live.
Yeah, so I'm Zoe. I live in Stars House and I'm a member of the Stars House TMO board.
Excellent, excellent. In that case, you may now begin your presentation.
Lovely, thank you very much. So Stars House TMO began working on a design for new council housing on our estate in around 2015. We commissioned an architect, we consulted with residents because we wanted to win support to pursue developing council housing, which at that point we planned on just the council-owned land. We had a specific aim to protect the gardens at Styles House, which are very important to residents. And we wanted to develop a plan for housing because there have been many repeated plans to redevelop Styles House since 1999. And this created many years of uncertainty for residents, as we didn't know if our homes would be demolished. And as residents, we wanted to develop a plan that would end the anxiety and the stress we were all experiencing, which we're finding quite difficult to manage. What followed was a process that was often slow and quite tortuous at times, but from this we developed the current plan. It's been through many iterations, but with this final plan, as was talked about earlier, we put it to a full ballot of residents at Styles House, and which was overwhelmingly supported. It's probably worth saying the scheme is to build 25 flats, but it also includes the transfer of 4 flats in Styles House from TfL ownership to Southwark Council, so it is actually a net increase of 29. The project is being jointly managed by Styles House residents and Southwark Council, and we're very grateful to Dan Taylor for his incredible hard work on the scheme. Our aim has been very much to build high quality housing following the same model that Leather Market TMO followed, and we've spoken at length with Leather Market to understand how residents were involved, because we wanted to do the same thing as a TMO. We're clear as an estate that we're strongly supportive of new council housing, but we didn't want it to be at the expense of current residents. So we also had an emphasis on ensuring that there are improvements to the wider estate, because we recognise that as residents, we're going to be affected negatively in some ways by the new building. And we wanted to make sure that there was also improvements to the estate. The improvements are focused on the entrance to Styles House and the land around, as this reflects what residents wanted. So we wanted a new bin space. Our bin space is a bit nasty. We wanted an entrance that is disabled accessible, and we wanted better security for the estate. We had major works about 10 years ago, so the flats themselves didn't necessarily need any specific improvements, so we very much focused on communal improvements. The scheme is very much a compromise, and we're building in an area which has got many constraints. We're next to Southwark Tube Station, we back onto Waterloo Station. The land ownership is very complicated, it's very small, there isn't a lot of space, but we've tried to develop a scheme which residents would support, and without the support, the scheme it won't progress. And that's why we've been so keen to regularly consult residents to make sure we had a ballot, so that actually we were moving forward with a scheme that residents actually want to happen. There's a number of things which we're particularly pleased about the scheme. We recognise compromises have been made, but it's been resident-led. We've been able to protect the garden. The design reflects what residents want to see and looks at solving the housing needs of residents in the block. We've been able to offer options to residents and agree a local letting agreement with the council. We've been able to provide protect current amenities and also deliver new benefits to current residents. We've developed a strong team to take the scheme forward, because we recognise it's not going to be easy to actually deliver the scheme. And the scheme provides council housing in Borough and Bankside, which hasn't had very much. Thank you very much.
Well done, you. Thank you, Zoe. Well done, well done. Can I invite members of the committee to ask questions of Zoe? Are there questions? No questions. Give you another chance. I know she hadn't travelled very far, but she presented so well, I must say. No?
I could probably answer more of the questions earlier and put more detail in if people like about the allotments, etc., and parking.
Yeah,
if there was more questions on that.
Respond to that question. That was an interesting one. What I think I recognise the overall space is not declined. The decision to increase the amenity space versus the allotment, it was an interesting decision to make. Why did you make that decision?
So I think the allotments are very much ones which were developed by residents, and when I say developed, I mean we physically built them and moved an awful lot of soil to put them in. I remember quite what hard work it was, and residents use them, but over time use of them has actually dropped off. They're very much raised beds rather than like official allotments, and we found that less people wanted to use them, and so we decided that the focus should be on providing more garden so that people can sit in it and use it, but not feel the pressure to actually have an allotment. We have a lot of people in our block who are disabled, who've got mental health problems, and actually people found actually maintaining a raised bed quite challenging. So those who were keen on it, we wanted to make sure that there was beds for them and a few extra. We didn't just stick to, because in case people might move in who'd like a bed, but actually we focused on trying to develop a garden that people will use, and we felt that a garden was probably more people can use it than an allotment. So it's a little bit of a compromise really, but I think it's one that residents were happy with, because we still have the allotments, but we'll also have more garden, and it'll be a well-designed garden as well.
Okay. Thank you. I think I will answer this particular question. It's come up on a number of occasions in relation to the oh God, I have to use Vendetta's acronym the oversight, whatever it's called. It will be a very big building alongside your building. Are you going to be happy with that?
I can't personally claim that I'm going to be thrilled about it, and I'm not going to come along and say, yeah, that's a great scheme and it's a lovely building, because that would be a lie. But we're in an area where lots of tall buildings have been built. We have to accept that probably we'll get a tall building there. And I think we've tried to focus on getting improvement for residents, getting more council housing, that we got something positive out of the scheme. I live on the side of the building which will be most affected, and so I probably feel quite strongly about it. Maybe other residents might like the scheme. It's not one that makes me, I'm not thrilled. But there are compromises which need to be made, and that is one of the compromises which we've made.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you very much indeed. Are there further questions from members? If not, thank you, Zoe, very much for your presentation. I wish to encourage local residents to present as you have. Well done.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. If I may, I'm going to move on now to our last presenters. Can I just confirm, are there councillors in the room?
Yes, Chair.
Yes, Chair.
Oh, familiar voices. Oh my gosh, there we are. Okay. I suppose I should explain to you the rules of this meeting, should I? But I'll give you 3 minutes. I'm not sure, are you intending to both speak or split between you? Can you just confirm first of all, before I introduce you?
Yes, Chair, I'm going to speak first, and then assuming I don't use up all the time, which I'll try not to, then Councillor Morris will speak.
Very good. In that case, can I ask councillors, first of all, could you introduce yourself to the committee and to our listeners? Councillor.
Yeah, good evening. My name is Councillor David Noakes, and I'm one of the Borough and Bankside Ward councillors.
And I'm Councillor Adele Morris, also a Borough and Bankside Ward councillor.
Thank you. And Councillor Noakes, I'll indicate to you within 15 seconds of your 1.5 minutes in that case. And if you're ready, you may begin your presentation now.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to start by saying that I strongly welcome the building of new council homes. These are actually the first new build council homes delivered in Borough and Bankside and the former Cathedrals Ward in the last 10 years. I do have some regrets and concern that the application is linked to TfL's Southwark Station overstation development, because I think that is going to attract opposition from other local residents for a number of reasons, particularly in regards to its proposed height and design. And while I recognise the practicalities and the financial benefits of the deal with TfL, I believe there was an option for the council to develop the site as a standalone application. And in a number of ways, I think that would have been more desirable. Despite that, we have always fought for residents to have the final say, and this application has the support of the majority of existing residents at Styles House. In regards to the application delivering only 1 and 2 bedroom properties, and therefore the housing mix not being policy compliant, on this occasion, I believe this is acceptable for the following reasons. Firstly, that all the existing properties are 1 bed or studio. Secondly, that 1 bed and 2 bed are in high demand in the area. And thirdly, that 100% of the properties will be affordable. We do, however, recognise and strongly support the provision of more family units in our ward. And finally, I would like to add my thanks and recognition for the work and engagement of Styles House TMO residents, Dan Taylor and Councillor Pollock. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. It's 1.5 minutes. Councillor Adele Morris.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I support everything that David has just said. I'd just like to add to it in terms of it being linked to the overstation development. It is regrettable that we've taken so much money in lieu from some of the big developments along the riverside over the last 10 years that we hadn't got the money to simply build the council housing outright without it being dependent on this other. And so there is a nervousness that, if everything goes wrong with the overstation development, and as Councillor Noakes says, there is a lot of objection to it, that this much needed council housing will not happen. The only other thing I wanted to say is that I am disappointed that the GLA had to put pressure on our own council teams to make it more environmentally friendly. We should be leading by example. If we want our developers to be delivering carbon neutral homes, that are fit for the future, then we should be setting and leading by example. So I am quite disappointed that it doesn't have better carbon neutral credentials on this scheme, and particularly now that I've seen that we had to be asked to go further by the GLA. I think, I just had something to pose actually about the car parking issues. Can I just ask the members whether or not they want to clarify whether the new block will be car-free development and in other words, exempt from getting parking permits locally? Because I think that, you know, if there are some... Thank you.
Thank you. Right here. Thank you for that. Are there members who wish to ask councillors a question? May wish to. Let's follow up on that, on your question, Councillor. Oh, Councillor Whitehead. Yep, there we go. Go ahead, Councillor Whitehead.
I was just going to ask whether there's anything else you want to add. Sorry, Jared. I was just saying. I was just wondering if either of the councillors would like to add anything further.
Right here. Okay.
If I may, Chair, just to finish on the point about the parking, you know, just to ask members to be clear on the, because obviously normally new builds would always be car free, but if there are going to be people moving across and they need, it's not so much about the parking on site, but any parking permits that they might be able to access. So just to make sure that everybody is clear in the section 106 about how that needs to be written. Thank you, Chair.
Very good, that's fine. Duly noted. Are there any other further questions from members of the committee? Is that Councillor Livingstone?
Yes, no, I just really wanted to just so I'm certain what that last point, Councillor Morris, is my understanding of what you're asking is the new development ought to be car free, except those people that might already have permits that currently live in Styles House, being able to passport those across the new property. Is that what you're trying to get to?
Well, yes. I mean, I'm not sure whether I'm saying that that's the agreement, but it's something that needs to be considered, because if people are going to move across, then ordinarily that would be the situation. The new block would be car free. So it's for the committee really to think about whether or not you want to put something in the section 106 to make exemptions for people, or whether you want to say to people, if you move across to the new block, hard luck, you lose your car. You know, that's something that I mean, I don't have a particular view on it, but it's just something that might be worth getting nailed down in the 106.
Right, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. If there are no questions from the committee, I wish to thank the councillors for their presentation and responses to questions from the committee. Thank you very much indeed. I now wish to move on, if I can, to clearing up any outstanding question that's arisen as a result of receiving these presentations. Are any comments members wish to make? I'll take Councillor Whittam first, followed by Councillor Livingstone. Councillor Whittam.
Can we ask Alex his response to the parking question?
Indeed, Alex, you heard the question, anyone?
Yes, Chair.
Thank you.
The car-free development applies to all development that fulfill the criteria, and the new development fulfills the criteria for us to be dedicated as car-free, but with the exclusion of blue badge holders. So the 4 car parking spaces retained, 3 of them are for blue badge holders. So perhaps the other one is protected for somebody who is already owned a car parking permit within there to park there. So being just 1 car parking space, standard one, we feel that it's reasonable for this development that already had around 13 car parking spaces previously. They can retain that one, but blue badge holders are always excluded for car parking permit exclusion.
Thank you very much indeed for that response, Alex. Thank you. Councillor Livingstone.
Yes, it's on the same issue, and just really to follow up on Councillor Morris's point, and it might be to Alex, it might be to John Gorse, but it was really to understand whether legally it would be possible for the council to have an exemption to that car-free policy for any existing tenant of Styles House who was transferring to the new block. Because I know from other developments elsewhere where people have had a car where they previously lived and then moved across, that's often caused lots of issues and problems. And I wouldn't, ideally for me, if there's some tenant who feels, for whatever, for work or whatever, they need to have their car, but had their heart set on one of these new homes and then felt their hopes were dashed because of this, that would be a bit of a shame, I think. So if there was a way we could have that exemption, I think that would be appropriate.
If I can answer that question, Councillor, before we can actually, if there's existing car parking spaces, we have to look at the utilization of those car parking spaces. This development, they've already carried out survey, and the residents have agreed that the retained number of car parking spaces is indeed sufficient. So we can then say, because they are eligible for car parking permit, we have to protect them again. The utilization is always the first point of call. Normally we will say, carry out a survey, look at the utilization of the existing car parking spaces before we can say certain element of it can be protected. Bear in mind, when existing car parking spaces in a location of this nature, people use it for storage. Generally, we've had another development around London Bridge there. When I went there, nobody uses it. The garages, they just use it for storage. So we need to take that into consideration, that will help us to uphold our policy of zero car parking spaces for within a development that is sited where there's high public transport accessibility level. So we can't go backward to say, oh, we will encourage people to drive again, when exactly the applicant has already carried out a survey. They've agreed that whatever is left is okay, satisfactory, so we can protect the future residents because they are eligible for car parking permits.
Thank you. Yeah, it's got PTEL 6B, so extremely high. All righty. In that case, thank you, Councillor Bristow. Now go to Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you, Chair. Alex, I think we're heading ourselves into a wedge here. So if the council have issued 13 permits or so to the current residents, and there's only one space going to be available for a non-blue badge holder, that's going to create problems, isn't it? So I think you need to go one way or the other. Either take away the one space and make that a fourth blue badge space. In other words, it's car free, or provide for a reasonable number of private car owners who currently have a badge. Otherwise, it's going to be a fight.
I've got the question, Councillor O'Brien. I've got the question. I don't get caught up on this.
Well, the question is, how do you think it's going to work? Because it's not.
Hold on a second. Hold on. I intervened because we've heard from the applicant and we've also heard from the supporters, and they both appear to be content with the car parking provision. If I may, then Councillor O'Brien, we can go back to Dan Taylor, who's somewhere on my screen. I see him. Dan, would you like to just comment on Councillor O'Brien's observation?
Yeah, so obviously, as discussed, resident-led, so the residents have decided what compromises to make. Zoe set that out in her presentation, that compromises had to be made. They've decided to prioritise green space, and there's obviously a net increase in community amenity space overall above car parking. So they've accepted that they're going to lose some car parking spaces. They're obviously right on top of the tube station, so they've got great public transport facilities, and that's the compromise they've made. So they're happy with that approach.
Rightio. Okay. In that case, I believe that's responded to that particular point. Are there any other points that we haven't covered? If not, then I'll move on. And I think I'm with your indulgence, I'll move on to a motion. I think we're ready for a motion, unless there's any comments to the contrary. In that case, I will move on to the motion. So I would like to move that we adopt the officer's recommendations set out in paragraph 1 and 2 of the report and page 52 of the main agenda pack. That planning permission be granted, subject to condition and referral to the Mayor of London, and the applicant enter into an appropriate legal agreement. In the event that the requirement of one are not met by the 1st of August 2021, the Director of Planning be authorised to refuse planning permission, if appropriate, for the reasons set out in paragraph 195 of this report. Okay. Any member wish to speak to the motion? Are we happy with that motion?
I'm happy to second that recommendation, Chair.
Thank you very much. In that case, then I'll move to the vote, and as per usual, I'll do it by names. I'll start with Councillor Morell. Are you for, against, or abstain the motion?
I'm for, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Richard Livingstone. Are you for, against, or abstain the motion?
For, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Damon O'Brien. Are you for, against, or abstain the motion?
For, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Cleo Soames. Are you for, against, or abstain the motion?
For, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Dan Whitehead. Are you for, against, or abstain the motion?
For, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Kath Whittam. Are you for, against, or abstain the motion?
For, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Bill Williams. Are you for, against, or abstain the motion?
For, Chair.
Thank you very much. And I'm Councillor Martin Seaton, and I'm for the motion. The motion is therefore carried unanimously. I want to thank the officers for their presentations, the applicants for their presentations, and of course a special thanks for the supporters for their presentations. And I wish you well in your future development. And all other contributors, thank you, and all of you, good evening to you. Thank you.